Hello, this is Truman, and here's another great verse for today. It's Matthew chapter 10, verse 29 through 31, where Jesus said, "Are not two sparrows sold for a copper coin? And not one of them falls to the ground apart from your Father's will. But the very hairs of your head are all numbered. Do not fear, therefore. You are of more value than many sparrows." Many years ago, my wife Connie was reading this passage. She was having some pressure on her life, some worries, and she read this passage, and it really encouraged her. And so she got in her car and she began to drive to church. And on the way, as she reflected on that very passage, not one sparrow falls to the ground apart from the Father's will. As she was reflecting on that and thinking about that, how personal God is, a sparrow hit her windshield and flew off to the ground. She thought, God, certainly you're a personal God, that at that very moment you would emphasize that if my eye is on the sparrow, how much more so do you care about my problems? Does God know your troubles? Oh, yes, He does. Well, what about the troubles of all the people of the world? There must be trillions of problems. Is God able to know every detail about everyone? And the answer is our God is sovereign. That God knows you and I perfectly, more than anyone else could. So God is trying to encourage us that He knows our troubles. He's telling us not to fear. He loves us. He cares about us. Then many years later, my wife would have terrible pain in her leg. This resulted in being sent to the university to some equipment where she was had a body scan to check for cancer. And I remember when we saw the cancer doctor, he said, well, your body lit up with cancer in many, many places. It was a discouraging moment, But the other half of that verse says that the very hairs of your head are numbered. Well, normally there's about 100 to 150,000 hairs on every head. So after the first chemo treatment and after the second chemo treatment, as my wife was brushing her hair and I was standing behind her, hair began to come out on her brush. And then it came out in just wads of hair. And she began to cry. I did my best to comfort her and hug her. But then the other verse came to apply to our situation, that the very hairs of our head are all numbered. And because of the chemo, every single hair of her head would fall out. Well, does God care? Yes, He cares. Now, God doesn't always do this, but after 2 chemo treatments, just 2, the doctor said, I'm going to send you back to the university, to the same lab, to the same machine, run the same test. I want to see how my chemo is doing. Well, when we saw the doctor, he reported, there is not a single cancer cell in your body. You're completely healed. It's all gone. We were amazed, and I said, well, doctor, how do you explain that? He said, it's very rare, very rare. And the only thing I can say is, it must be your prayers and my chemo. Well, we gave God the glory. In this case, God chose to heal my wife completely, and that cancer never came back. So what a great verse for today. God knows about every sparrow falling to the ground, and God numbers the very hairs of your head. Child of God, whatever you're going through today, know this. Be encouraged. The Lord knows. Cast all of your cares on Him, for He cares for you. A great verse for today.